I have long maintained the position that if you want to stop the insane reactionary support, you have to address and tackle and dismantle the apartheid, because the apartheid justifies the existence of the Jewish Power Party and many other more reactionary forces in Israeli politics. And because the overwhelming majority of liberal Zionists in Israel don't want to reckon with that issue, they just kind of put their hands up in the air and go, how the fuck do we get here? I don't understand. Well, that's how you got here. Holy, that is so crazy.
Of Israel's.
Now let's move on to another incredibly democratic country. Of course, the most democratic country of all time, the most moral democracy of all time, Israel.
Renewed offensive, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But for Palestinians in Gaza, it's the return to a nightmare. Digging through rubble to recover bodies, ferrying the dead and wounded to already depleted hospitals. Prayers.
Yeah, here's the Israel's new defense minister, after the former one had some back and forth, some friction with Netanyahu, even though the former one is currently has an active arrest warrant for being a war criminal, Yoav Gallant. The new one is Defense Minister Katz. And just like the previous one, he came out and said he's going to actively target civilians, which again is a war crime. But also, what the fuck are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Who's going to say, hey, can you not do war crimes, please? You can't. There's no one that will be like, hey, this sounds a lot like you're doing a genocide. I don't think that is appropriate. Please, can you stop doing a genocide, you know? Another good guy, if you will. Here, let's hear what he has to say. Okay, it's in Hebrew. Residents of Gaza, this is your final warning. The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza, and the second Sinwar will bring upon it total ruin. The Israeli Air Force's attacks against Hamas terrorists was only the first step. What follows will be far harsher, and you will bear the full cost. Evacuation of the population from combat zones will soon resume. If all Israeli hostages are not released and Hamas is not kicked out of Gaza, Israel will act with force you have not known before. Take the advice of the U.S. president, return the hostages and kick out Hamas, and new options will be open for you, including relocation to other parts of the world for those who choose. The alternative is destruction and total devastation. This basically is the final solution. He's saying it's the final solution time. If we actually don't ethnically displace you, then we're just going to ethnically cleanse you from the land. That is what he is saying. This is the defense minister, for the record, of the most moral army and the most moral military of the most moral democracy on the planet, Israel. Very not so subtle words here.
And mourning.
I lost my whole family. I got married recently in 2023. God honored me with Muhammad, who was so beautiful, and my wife was pregnant. She was martyred while she was pregnant. My son was martyred too.
For the second night in a row, Israel struck several targets across the Gaza Strip, including this makeshift camp in Han Yunis.
I want to tell Benjamin Netanyahu that it is not manly to attack civilians in their tents. Manly is to find the soldiers in the fields.
Israel Defense Forces say they are targeting Hamas command centers, and in the last 24 hours have issued evacuation.
This is the piece of shit Arab spokesperson for the Israeli occupying force. God, I know all these fucking villains now. It shouldn't happen, but yeah. All the while, the IDF have began targeted ground activities in central and southern Gaza over the past day in order to expand the security zone and to create a partial buffer between northern and southern Gaza. As part of the ground activities, the troops expanded their control further to the center of the Netzarim corridor. Netzarim is the one that crosses across the Gaza Strip, separates the south and the north. Simultaneously, it has decided that the Golani Brigade would be stationed in the southern command area and remain ready for operations in Gaza. The IDF will continue to operate against terrorist organizations in Gaza to protect the civilians, to protect the citizens in the state of Israel. Oh, God. Oh, no. That's the scariest thing you can ever hear from an Israeli is we have security concerns. That means ethnic cleansing is back on the menu. Whenever an official Israeli politician says we have security concerns, know that bombs are about to drop. Know that genocide is back on.
Orders affecting nearly 100,000 Palestinians, raising concerns of another ground operation. While in Israel, resentment towards the government is pouring into the streets. Thousands marched towards the Knesset on Wednesday.
It's not lost on me, once again, that the opposition to the Benjamin Netanyahu government is still waving the flags of Israel. This is important to understand. Think about the opposition in the United States of America, okay? Think about the opposition to the Trump administration in the U.S. Think about the opposition to previous administrations in the U.S. Who is the one that raises American banners and American flags? What is their attitude? I'm trying to get you Americans and those in the Western world to understand that this right here implies that they're not totally against Benjamin Netanyahu's actions. They're just against Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay?
Accusing Netanyahu of resuming the war for political gains. It is the second day of protests, with many worrying he is further endangering the 24 hostages still believed alive, and outraged by his attempts to fire the head of Israel's internal security service, the Shin Bet.
We want to be a democracy, and we are
Crime minister. Okay, that's a fire hoodie.
on the way to dictatorship.
And the hostages are still in the tunnels, and we want them home now.
Public opinion polls in Israel show support.
I just feel like the media is saying that Hamas didn't want to negotiate. I feel like we're being gaslit about the ceasefire deal. As you said, there was a phase 2 and 3. Why did Israel break? Why are people okay with that? Yeah, no, it's a lie. When Israel says Hamas is not negotiating with us, they're lying. That's just an abject lie. Think about it this way. Israel violated the ceasefire even on phase 1 with no intention of ever moving to phase 2 or 3, right? And even then, there was no retaliation from Hamas in that process. No retaliation whatsoever. And then they just basically decided it's over. It's completely over. We're just going to go back to full-blown ethnic cleansing, and immediately killed hundreds of Palestinians, 180 children that they slaughtered overnight. It's been the same exact lie that they've retold over and over again with no with no pushback from Western leadership against these lies. As a matter of fact, the Biden administration actively supported this lie. They lied at the behest of Israel over and over again. They actually overextended their lies so much that Benjamin Netanyahu, fearing political backlash from his coalition of even more further right neo-Nazis, decided to actively undermine the Biden administration. Whenever Anthony Blinken would be like, no, this is Israel's deal, Bibi would come out and be like, it's not. I hate this deal. I don't want to do this deal at all.
For a second stage of the ceasefire, but Netanyahu has all but ruled out a return to peace, saying on Tuesday that future negotiations with Hamas will take place only under fire.
So, yeah, there was some drama with Netanyahu personally for firing the leader of the Shin Bet. Shin Bet is the interior security. It's like the FBI, basically, like the National Security Intelligence Agency of Israel. And Mossad is CIA, Shin Bet is like FBI. Okay, it's reductive, but that's kind of what it is. And after he did that, because of a back and forth over, I believe it was over October 7 as well as some other reasons, the government called him. The government wanted to conduct an inquiry into why he had unceremoniously fired the head of the Shin Bet. And Benjamin Netanyahu started dropping bombs that night, and of course the inquiry was canceled. Is this the woke one? There is no woke one. There is no woke group in Israel. Like that's why most of the opposition is still, very on board with continuing bombing, but they just want the hostages back, or they don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't have an issue with. Like, if you want to understand the opposition in Israel, look at like Yair Lapid. Look at the quote unquote centrists in positions of power and the way that and the way that they operate. Like when the ICC came down on Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, they literally called the ICC anti-Semitic. Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, considers it woke leftist and a deep state agenda. Here it is. Shin Bet and police investigating for weeks allegations that some of Netanyahu's aides were on the Qatari payroll. This evening, 2 suspects arrested over contact with foreign agent plus money laundering. This is Netanyahu's reaction. In America and in Israel, when a strong right-wing leader wins an election, the leftist deep state weaponizes the justice system to thwart the people's will. They won't win in either place. We stand strong together. He's like, they're coming after me, but they want to come after you. I'm just in the way. He's doing the Donald Trump line. But yeah. It's not that different. They're generally less corrupt than Bibi. It's time for a change of leadership in Israel. Yeah, they're process libs in the same way that our liberals are here as well. So, yeah, like I'll explain it to you like this: liberal Zionists in Israel, or even like the Shin Bet, right? They have valid security concerns that they recognize. So they'll oftentimes come to Benjamin Netanyahu and say, "Hey, can you stop working alongside Itamar Ben-Gvir in really doing these pogroms in the West Bank? Because every time you do a pogrom in the West Bank, you're moving military resources away from the Gaza envelope and moving it into the West Bank. And also you're pissing off the Palestinians. And when you piss off the Palestinians, Hamas is getting angrier and angrier and sees just cause for retaliation. You are going to collapse the delicate security apparatus that we've cultivated in our apartheid state." They're saying that not because they want to end the apartheid state. They're saying that because they want to maintain the apartheid state with a decent amount of security. Some liberal Zionists will look to the West Bank and the pogroms and say, that's gross. Why do they say that? Well, because they understand that in the Western world, that plays really poorly, because that's the type of clan style activity that like even Westerners can understand. Okay. But overall, nobody fully, like with the exception of a very small group of people, like dedicated anti-Zionists, almost all of them I've had on this fucking broadcast, there's no real genuine anti-Zionist movement, especially amongst Israeli Jews. And the Palestinian citizens of Israel, which comprise 25% of the Israeli population. By the way, when I say Israeli Jews, that's not my interpretation. It is the demographic association that Israel has designed, because it's a Jewish ethno-state, a Jewish religious supremacist ethno-state. So it's their own designation that I'm using in this circumstance. There are plenty of Arab Jews as well in Israel. They're just not considered Arab. Arab is considered second-class citizen. So, yes, there are Marxists. I know personally. No, I know. But they're a small, incredibly small number of people, and most of them are in here. That's what I'm talking about. So most of the opposition against the Netanyahu administration in Israel is, of course, still very much in support of a lot of the violence and the cruelty that the Israeli government subjects Palestinians to. They just want to not erode their civil liberties. Like, you know, they want to be gay. They want to be a gay apartheid state. They don't want to be an anti-apartheid state. And they don't want to abolish the apartheid. They just want to still be gay. So, that's a somewhat reductive way to explain the process here. So, I have long maintained the position that if you want to stop the insane reactionary support, you have to address and tackle and dismantle the apartheid, because the apartheid justifies the existence of the Jewish Power Party and many other more reactionary forces in Israeli politics. And because the overwhelming majority of liberal Zionists in Israel don't want to reckon with that issue, they just kind of put their hands up in the air and go, how the fuck did we get here? I don't understand. Well, that's how you got here. A interesting analog to what we have experienced with the Democratic Party's lackluster opposition to the Republicans undermining the administrative apparatus, undermining the administrative state, and doing a metric ton of awful fascist things here in the United States of America, which the Democrats are not doing a good job tackling or criticizing, partially because there are a lot of Democrats that just want stability, no matter what the cost is. And also on top of that, there's a lot of Democrats that like the things that the Trump administration is doing. They're just too cowardly to openly state that they like the things that the Trump administration is doing. But it's great that they can maintain moral high ground while simultaneously, doing like the most cowardly, feckless little I don't like what you're doing style opposition towards the Republicans. Yeah, they care about prices stabilizing. All right. God damn, dude. Holy shit.